Kind of fun to see all your names and pictures, the future of the profession. It's really exciting. And the present of the profession, of course, too. I know many of you are already making significant contributions. So I just got named a social work pioneer, which I'm a little ambivalent about. It's a nice honor, but I still feel like I'm in graduate school sometimes. I still feel like one of you. So it's nice to be in this meeting today and see everybody.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't feel like I was out there really cutting down the timber, but I am old, so that's one credential I do have.
Uh-huh.
And I was in on the beginning of the grand challenges, so that brings us to today's topic. And I guess we should get going, even though a few people are ringing in still. So thank you for joining us. Today we're going to do hopefully answer your questions that haven't been answered before or on the website. We hope that we've been reasonably clear, but probably wouldn't have 41 of you on this call already and more to join if we were perfectly clear. So just as background, this is the second year, so you're not in the cutting edge group. This is the second year of New York Communities Trust funding of the Grand Challenges for Social Work doctoral awards. They go to DSW or PhD students for dissertation support or for whatever, if you're a DSW student and you don't have a dissertation, and some of you do, whatever it is that your final product is. We have tried to structure this in a way that is as straightforward and unencumbering as possible. So you don't have to have IRB approval. You don't have to send us a detailed budget. You don't even have to account for the funding that you get. It'll just come to you for your use for appropriate legal activities that advance your doctoral work. If that means childcare, so you can focus on writing your dissertation, or if that means some coffee so that you can stay awake late into the night, all those things can be part of this. Also, we expect that we'll want to be able to tell something of a story about what the uses are beyond coffee. And so for those of you who do have subject fees in mind, that's been a really helpful thing. I know for many doctoral students, been able to expand their samples because they've had somewhat more support for respondents to their studies. But so we hope that you will, should you be victorious, will keep in mind some stories to tell about the value of these awards, because of course we want to be able to go back to the New York Community Trust and ask for eternal support for doctoral students to work on the grand challenges. But getting a little ahead of ourselves and thinking about the award winners, there will be 13 award winners as there were last time. So there's one for each grand challenge. And that's what we have funding for. Last year, we were able to get some funding also for 12 honorable mentions, but we don't know whether we can do that again this year. So we can't commit to that. Kira Silk is the director of the Grand Challenges, and she often adds to whatever I've said to fill in missing pieces. And so I'll turn to her and see if she wants to do that now.
Hi, everyone. I don't have anything to add. Rick is always best at going first and more comfortable with the public speaking than I am, so we're a good team, but we're really excited to have you all here. This program has been really exciting, and I think our first cohort, if they were here today, would talk about how beneficial that's been to be a part of this and to be part of a cohort. And so we're excited to have an opportunity to do a second cohort. And as Rick said, hopefully ongoing cohorts after this. But for now, we have 2 years of funding to do this. So, jump in at the opportunity. And certainly, as we said kind of at the beginning, this is really meant to be kind of an open house town hall forum. We hope you'll come off, raise your hand so that you're not all jumping in at once, but you can use the chat or come off mute to ask questions. There are no stupid questions, and that's sort of it. One of the things that we've talked about, and Rick mentioned this a little bit, trying to make sure that the process and application was really geared towards both PhD students and DSW students. And I know that we maybe didn't get that 100% because the programs are so different. So in this interactive opportunity, I want to verbally say that DSWs really are encouraged to be a part of this, even if you don't see how, the words you're used to seeing about your program. We have 2 DSW students this year in our cohort, and we'd love to see that, a little more evenly split in this next cohort. Who wants to be brave enough to ask the first question?
Sarah.
Criteria I saw was by this date, and I believe it was August 24, but I could be wrong, 2024. You have to be either completed your dissertation or capstone project. I was wondering if a literature review would be considered, or just more information about that criteria and that date.
So I'll jump in about the date. The date is 2025. Last year's was 2024. So,
sorry, yes. But I
try to
be
give it a
done with
little
my
bit of-
dissertation by 2025 either way. So I was just wondering if I should. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that we probably didn't fund any dissertations that were just literature reviews. Most all of them had some original data collection or capstone projects that were just literature reviews. I may be misremembering, but it is possible, certainly, if it's innovative enough. There's no rule out, but I think there is a propensity to be looking for some unique information coming from the field, especially from a diverse community that social work is involved, the diverse community that social work is involved with. But there's no rule out for literature reviews.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? It could be a very broad question. And we are not taking notes about who asked what. Yes, Rosalind.
Yes, so piggybacking off of just what Kira was saying. So are you saying that we have to be done in 2025 to be able to apply for this, or can it be 2024? Just trying to make some clarification about exactly.
Earlier is fine. We just don't, we don't have real strict rules about when you have to spend all your money, because we're not monitoring your money. But on the other hand, we don't have a agreement with New York Community Trust to do this beyond a certain point. So any early is fine.
Okay.
Some of our applicants from last year, they got their award notice in January and they finished in June or May. So it can be that quick if some of them had already started their studies, or the studies were well underway, but they were able to justify using the funds for some part of their study.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The hope is that we're able to see some sort of progress in it, by the time the cohort wraps up, so that we can tell the story. So, yeah. Rick, we have a couple questions in the chat. I'm going to try to go in order, but if I missed yours, I apologize. We have one question. Can students who have not defended their dissertation proposal yet, but are soon to defend, sorry, there's a little bubble popping up in front of it, can they apply for the award? Plan to graduate by 2025?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things we didn't want to do was to insist that doctoral chairs indicate that you're going to finish your dissertation proposal in time to get this award. So if you haven't really made much progress, then we're hopeful there'll be another year in the future, and you could apply then, you could apply now and then. Probably the awardees will be folks with a pretty clear idea about what they're going to do, even if they haven't made that much progress doing it. So there's no requirement, in short, of defending the dissertation proposal, but you should have enough of it thought through to make a persuasive argument that you're a good choice. International students can certainly apply. Yep, no question there. And there's 5 new messages, okay?
Well, that's coming in.
Yeah.
Let's see which one's
Our
okay.
application, we asked to choose one specific grand challenge. Yes. But you can, Kira, you answer this one. I'm trying to remember now.
So you'll see that you have the opportunity to select a first choice and a second choice. In the first year, we tried to put everyone with their first choice unless we saw kind of a clear differentiation, or if we saw that it provided you a better opportunity under the second choice. So, you know, if one network wound up with twice as many applications and one network had half as many, we might, you know, shift folks around so that it gives a little bit more of an opportunity. You are not required to select a second choice.
So Alana, you've got your hand up. I love that.
Yes, hello. So I am in a GCSW program, and I'm curious whether, you know, a lot of the I was looking at the previous candidates, and I noticed a lot of them focus very heavily on dissertation research, et cetera, et cetera. And so part of my project, I think, is probably more closely aligned with kind of a social entrepreneurship focus. And I was just curious whether that makes a difference, you know, as opposed to kind of pure research or something that would be more along the public sector or nonprofit realm.
I'd like to say that we're open to innovation and excellence, and that's our aspiration. And so therefore, it doesn't make a difference. I can't say that necessarily. We're a bunch of academics for the most part. We have had some practitioner involvement in these networks, but not a lot. So I don't know whether that would disfavor in some way a more social entrepreneurship approach, but I hope not. I hope that we would stick with our goals of innovation and excellence, and having a likely impact, as we hope the grand challenges will in general.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rick, another question in the chat. Are there any previous students being accepted for the capstone project, but not for their dissertation? I'm not sure I understand that one.
Maybe whoever asked that could just come on camera or on mic and explain a little bit more. So in your program, there's a capstone project and a dissertation, or am I missing that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like besides the dissertation, we have kind of like a small project that we can just, you know, design our own research in terms of what we're interested in. So I'm just wondering if there's any previous people who try to run their own project, which would be different from dissertation.
It's a good question, Jen. I think probably if it's a pretty ambitious capstone project and seems like it's unique and innovative and could benefit from the support, it could be considered. I don't, we don't have, again, there's no rule out there. The whole goal is to help advance the careers of our excellent doctoral students in a way that advances the grand challenges. So if you can make that case for your capstone project, then you certainly will get reviewed, and hopefully the virtue of your argument will shine through.
Thank you.
And Kira mentioned that there is a webpage with our current scholars, our fellows. So if anybody wants to go on there and see what they're up to, or check in with them, well, they haven't given me permission to volunteer them to say what their experience is like, but you can use your social networks, and you'll probably have some friends who know some friends who know them anyway, and so you could reach out that way. I've got Anthony Gomez with a hand up.
Hi, thank you. My name is Anthony. I'm from the UC Berkeley School of Social Welfare. I was just reviewing the application materials, and I noticed that the application asks that we include items 1 through 7 as sort of one giant PDF document. And one of those items, item number 6, I believe, is the letter of recommendation or letter of support from our primary faculty advisor. So that I'm understanding that correctly, right? That's all going in, and we submit that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just that. It isn't a letter that says you've got IRB approval. It isn't a letter say that you've passed your proposal. It's just that. It's a letter about you and your work and your potential to do this, do something innovative and excellent.
And I will say that we did have some folks who struggled to incorporate what their faculty person sent to them. If you need to send something in separately as an attachment in an email, we can make that work. But the hope is that everything you're submitting is in one package, so it doesn't get lost or messed up along the way as it gets passed from our hands to the reviewer's hands.
We know there are faculty still writing on yellow pads, so it's if you send in some handwritten notes on yellow pads, it's okay. We're open to anything. Let's see. Can the application be linked in the chat? Oh, well, look at that. That'll make it easier to see it and ask any other questions, clarification. So the timeline is tight. You have about a month, if I recall, and but hopefully you've been thinking about these important issues for a while. And then we'll try to get back to you in time for letting you know by the end of the year or early in January. We will be probably having an informal gathering of, well, we will definitely have a gathering of our current fellows at the Society for Social Work Research meeting, which is in Washington, D.C. And because there's going to be one of the things they asked for was to help them understand how to manage up to get the best mentoring that they need when they get to wherever they're going next. So not to just see what the school has with regard to an approach to mentoring, but actually have more agency and knowledge about what they should ask for and how they should use mentors in the future. So there's going to be a workshop about that at SWR. So those are the kind of things we hope that will continue next year for those of you who become part of the fellows group.
And just to piggyback on that session at the SWR conference is actually open.
Right.
Beyond just the fellows, and it's a first come first serve situation. So you all are welcome to join too if you'll be at that conference. You just have to be one of the first few spots to get it.
Yeah, it's going to be done by Stephanie Robert, who's won awards for mentoring at the University of Wisconsin, as a consummate teacher and mentor. So, anything else that we should chat about? Again, we have frequently asked questions. I don't think we got any new questions, but we'll double check and we'll add to them if we did. There are also audio tapes from last year that are on the web. And one last question came in: would we accept a letter of support from a community partner as part of our application? Sure, that would be fine. Andrea.
Yes. Hi, I'm Andrea Delanchian from University of Utah College of Social Work. If we are doing the MAP dissertation, so 3 different papers, is there a specific way you'd like that formatted when we are going over methodology?
Good question.
No, I think so. There are different ways of doing 3 dissertations, and I don't know what you have in mind or if University of Utah has a tradition. Some of them are just collections of different papers that you've been working on that maybe have a broad theme, like children's mental health, but they're really quite different from each other. And some of them are more or less one study that maybe you develop an assessment and it's in one paper, and the second paper is an intervention that measures the assessment or that uses that assessment to measure change, and a third paper is about policy implications that might follow or something like that. In that case, I would probably just describe the entire study and the significance of the entire study. If you do the first type, where you have 3 different papers that are all really quite different, I think it's probably going to help the reviewers to know why you're asking for this if you pick your strongest paper or the one that could use the support the most from a fellowship in terms of again, respondent support or something like that. So it's hard to answer that broadly, but that's kind of how I would think about it. Does that help?
Yeah, that does. I think I'm doing 3 separate papers, but there is one paper that for data collection, and I'm utilizing participatory methods. I think this would be helpful. And so I'm wondering if maybe I'll just give an overview, but then focus on that one paper that this grant could help with.
That sounds just right.
Thank you.
Rick, we have a question about how detailed the budgeting portion needs to be. I think the answer up front is not very, but I wonder if you wanted to share anything more about that.
Yeah, that's right. You don't have to, if you want, you can put in what you want in terms of if you think this is going to help you, again, like expand your sample, or it's going to be critical to meeting your power analysis or something like that. You can certainly mention that, but if it's going to be for general support for the project, that's okay too. We're not driven to, there aren't any economists that are going to be doing efficiency analyses of these grants. We're looking to, in a small way, it's not that big an award, but we're looking to recognize people who have been innovative, have really committed to one of the grand challenges in some way, have ideas that seem like they would resonate somewhat beyond their dissertation into the community or into policy or elsewhere. So all of those things are more important than the details about how you might spend $3,000. Do not need IRB approval before the due date.
The hand up. Oops, sorry, what? So Daniel, just about the IRB, what we've said is sort of, if you know that your project will need IRB approval, we want to know that you're kind of on top of it and working towards it. And so some sort of mention of what you're planning to do or, what you have done is sufficient. You don't have to submit evidence of that. Sorry, Sarwat.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said. Sarwat?
Yes, thank you. So in the case of someone needs general support, it becomes very difficult to provide documentation of everyday things but those everyday things might have a huge impact in collecting data, like bus pass to go to the site. So in that case, how do we share that information? Because it could be a couple of dollars here, there, all over the place. But then it makes a huge difference in my case, it would make a huge difference in my ability to go to the research site, to talk to people, to interview people and collect data.
Yeah. I think that's fine, just to say that the budget will be used for logistical support for the fellow, or for it doesn't have to be for participants. It doesn't have to be for someone to type your any transcript that you have, or recording that you have. If doctoral students still do that, maybe AI takes care of all that, I don't know. But it doesn't have to be any particular thing. That's great. I think reviewers would certainly respond to those needs in a very positive, expressed very succinctly and in a positive way.
Thank you.
So do you still have to type transcripts, or some of you? No, good. I don't see anybody. Maybe I'm just not looking at all the heads. Anything else? Okay, Yung Kyung Chung, one of the evaluation criteria is the extent to which projects are informed by interaction with stakeholders. Yeah, this is, and what do you do if you're doing secondary data analysis? I think that's a very good and common question in our doctoral programs. And the stakeholders in those cases might be agency personnel who could benefit from the information. If there's policy relevance to it, it could be policymakers, it could be somebody who could take the information and move it beyond the hallowed halls of academia into something that makes a difference. It could be that it's a missing piece in a long trajectory of research that, and the best you can say is, I'm going to bring this to my special interest group and to this group of scholars, and together we're going to write a grant proposal, or together we're going to have policy impact. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to know who to bring the information to, but you ought to have some articulation of a path forward by which this information could be of benefit to our stakeholders, which, as I say, doesn't only include our clientele or those who are part of our more disadvantaged parts of society, but could mean other stakeholders who are also working in the profession to strengthen society and to achieve the grand challenges. I mean, it's good for research too, to just make sure that you're checking in to see that your data makes sense, because when you do secondary data analysis, you always risk the fact that somebody else collected the data with a slightly different idea about why they were collecting it, and they have overlooked certain pieces that are really important. And so I think a strong secondary data analysis dissertation always has some opportunity for feedback from stakeholders. Personal opinion. We will put the recording up, yes. Precious.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I saw that you're encouraging certain populations to apply. So I'm assuming that the applications won't be observed like blindly. So you'll know exactly whose application you're looking at and everything like that.
We do.
Just to clarify though, sorry, Rick, the reviewers are not getting that information. The reviewers get kind of, the content. We have a committee that looks at kind of the rankings that they provide back to us to make sure that things feel diversified across lots of different areas. So geography, race, age, program type, and so on. So the reviewers ideally don't have that information in front of them while they're making their decisions. But for those of us on the back end that are making sure we're, representing the goals that we wanted to represent, are able to use that to make sure, one of the things I think about, we had 4 applications that were rated highly from one school last year. We didn't want to award 4 awards at one school, right? That wasn't in alignment with what we were trying to do. And so that's when it kind of comes into play.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example. The other thing is that the conditions of our award from the New York Community Trust is that we reach a diverse group of scholars and fellows. So
Awesome. Thank you.
So Precious, now that you asked us a question, what are those gorgeous colors and balloons in the back of your picture?
Those are actually old birthday balloons that I have been here since June. So they've been thrown away a long time ago, but they just make me happy for some reason. So
fair enough.
And you can't tell that they're from June on a Zoom camera. So
thank you.
Rick, we have a question that came in through the Q&A that says, can you advise a bit on what will make applications stand out and what will help us to be most successful? I think we've talked about that a little bit. It's really around innovation and innovative thinking. But Rick, if you want to.
Okay, sure. And first, let me just say back to Winnie. Okay, doing transcriptions. Thanks for telling me that. I think that makes sense. I just don't know whether that's old school or not. But anyway, that's a side conversation. Let's see. What would make for strongest application? So we know that most of you have not been that engaged in the work of the Grand Challenge networks. And that's partly because as a lead of one of the Grand Challenge networks, building health relationships to end violence, I confess we haven't been very good about opening up the process and including doctoral students. So you don't have to make the case that you've been actively involved with one of the networks, but the more you can make the case that your work is aligned with the cause of the networks, that's important. So just to use another example, the leadership of the Network to End Homelessness, Deborah Paget and Ben Henwood, of course, for those of you working in the field, know that they've been very aligned with Housing First. But if you're doing a dissertation that raises questions about whether housing, who Housing First works for and who it doesn't work for, or doesn't even mention Housing First, but has some other entirely different approach, that's fine. It's not a competition that's necessarily there to reinforce the tendencies of the existing leadership, to reinforce the message of any of the chapters in the books about the Grand Challenges, which there are now 4 or 5. So that's not the point. The point is that these are areas that social work historically has had some involvement with, but involvement that could be accelerated, that we think is important to accelerate, that needs good practice and science. And that's really what should be the focus. So I don't know if it helps to say what isn't required. What is expected is that what you're doing seems as innovative as possible. It's ground that's relatively untread is helpful. But we know too that you're new in the field and you're not going to have, some of you are new in the field, some of you have been around doing this work for a long time, but we're not expecting, entirely breakthrough ideas, but something that shows that you can add to what's been done, that you have the capacity to be a scholar in a way that adds benefit to the grand challenges and therefore adds benefit to society. This is a standard undefined characteristic of many grant reviews, innovation. So for those of you who want to go look it up and try to figure out exactly what it is, good luck to you. But NIH expects innovation. It's a little bit hard to wrap my words around it, but that's how we're thinking about it, I think. Okay. In my mind, I'm counting down from 60 to 0. And if nobody else has any more questions in the next minute or so, we will send you back on your way to working on your proposals.
Thanks, Passion. That's
very sweet.
Very lovely to hear. And I will say that obviously this isn't your only chance to ask questions. It's your only live chance on video to ask questions, but feel free to reach out to the Grand Challenges email address. I'm the one that checks it, so you could also just email me directly, but it helps contain it. And we'll get to the questions pretty quickly. We'll continue adding things to the FAQ as they come in. So if we're seeing trends of new questions and new themes, we'll make sure they get up there. And yeah, please feel free to reach out. And there are 2 other Q&A sessions from last year posted online with probably similar questions, but maybe slightly different. So in your abundance of free time, you want to watch those and hear what some of the other questions were from last year. It might provide some other information. That's what doctoral students have, right? Just an abundance of free time. That's how that works. Yeah.
So good luck with your proposals. I wish we could fund all of you. And of course, we're kind of limited, but we hope the process is a good one for you in any event, and that this will make you think about ways to be involved in the grand challenges, because they're going to be around for a while longer. And the idea of the grand challenges is now a good decade long. We're trying to go grander and boost some new grand challenges and some new ideas through the grand challenges, and having doctoral students be part of that is one of the components of going grander, because we're really trying to bring in new energy. We started with members of the academy who by definition were more senior people, but we want to make sure that the grand challenges captures the energy and the talent across the board and isn't defined by where we started.